II. It's late afternoon and I just wanted to give you a bit of an update. This room, which you've seen me doing a few videos in lately, used to be just a bit of a junk room, but I'm slowly converting it into a office, laboratory, studio, call it whatever the hell you like. This desk was always here and it used to have this computer and all of that stuff on it. And then over here on this side here, which you can't see, but I'll show you, was a big cube, and I'll grab that little camera and I'll show you what was there. This cube was over here in this space, but we've pushed it into the wardrobe where there was junk, you know, because it was really just used as a junk room. And so now I can just move a lot of things over there, in behind those wardrobe doors. And then here on this wall, we're going to put an air conditioner, which will go up here on that top corner. This filing cabinet, which you can see over here, buried underneath the printer and the PC and everything else here, is going to go over here in this corner. And then this desk is going to go in front of the window. Now, I don't much like the idea of desks in front of windows, but it's otherwise wasted space in a fairly tiny room. It's only a 3x3 or something room, or 3.3 by 3.3 or something, so there's not a lot of space. And then here in this corner will be height, or, well, not ceiling height, but you know, 1.8, 1.9, 2 meter tall cabinets, which will run right through this corner here. So that will then enable me to get a lot of this stuff, which is junk everywhere, up onto shelves and into cupboards. Because it doesn't take much to kind of bury yourself underneath things. So this is actually a tool roll, and I got it for the pliers, those little mini pliers that I bought, but it's really too big, because they really don't occupy a lot of space, and it's a gigantic great tool roll, you know. So I think we'll rethink that idea and we'll use the tool roll for what it was intended, which was tools, and we might just find a better container slash pack or something for those. Maybe a mini version of something like this, which is actually a Tool Pro kit for tools, but I've got a camera in here, and once again I'll show you with the little mini cam. This is the Panasonic GF1 with the charger, the cables, a 25mm lens, if I'm not mistaken. A zoom lens, that's the viewfinder. I have no idea what that lens is. That's 25mm. It's a spare battery. Because I'd set it up as black and white only, and I spoke about this when I was telling you about the Fuji, which I'm now using for black and white, I put all of these color filters in. So, you know, this all may change too, because I've got something that I wanted to show you, and that is a parcel that arrived today, which, if I'm not mistaken, well, let's wait. You can have a look when I open it. Is this camera stand. Now, this is not actually really what I expected to see. Because it says for phone camera. Oh, I see. Because I bought a camera stand, and it says in fact here that while this says it's a recording microphone stand, there's actually a note on here that says this is a multifunctional bracket that can be used for mobile phones, cameras or microphones. Although it is written on the outer packaging as a microphone stand, the inside of the package is what you purchased because we use the same packaging box. Please feel free to open the package. If you have any questions, you can contact us. Well, I would feel free to open the package, because what's the point of not opening the package and just keeping it in the box? But let's take a look and see if it is what we thought it was supposed to be. No idea what that bit is. Oh, I think that might be for a phone. So there's a bunch of pieces, clamps and things. Now it's probably pretty lightweight, but if we have a look at that GF1, potentially as the camera that we use as an overhead camera, and I did talk to you about this at one stage, then this would easily be strong enough. I'm guessing that's what you actually attach the camera to, because that's got that screw. I have read in reviews that the clamp itself is quite weak, and that if you crank it up too much, it tends to bend or break. So we'll be careful about that. But it looks as if we've already busted it. Go, that spring's open to put a phone in, and that would screw on there like a camera would on its tripod mount. However, that too would, so that would then give us that swivel head / ball joint, which is probably better. And then all we've got to do on this end is put on that well, it's facing the wrong way. So that clamps on the side of the desk, and the camera sits on here. Let's see if we can rig this up and I'll show you. Now, the microphone stand I did want to show you is this one here. And it's always in the background, but you've probably never seen it. This is a Rode NT1 studio mic. Now it's a condenser mic. Now that means that you can't plug it straight into a camera. It needs, well, this is an XLR input, and it needs what's called phantom power. While I have a phantom power supply, it's a Leam, I think. I plugged it in yesterday to see how it worked, and I got a bit of a spark when I plugged in the power, so I'm suspecting that there's a short circuit inside the Leam box. I'll check the voltage coming out of the adapters, but it's supposed to be 12 volts. So if we've got 12 volts with it, that's correct. The problem, I suspect, then is in the power supply. It's many years old, probably. Oh gee, how old would it be? 20 years old. So it might be time to trade up to a newer and better one, because then I can, if I'm going to do videos in here, then I can hook up that studio mic and use the studio mic rather than these. Now there's nothing wrong with these, but it's just that we expect to get even better audio quality from a studio mic. We've rigged up the GF1 over the desk, and that seems to be working okay. I mean, it's probably at its limit, because it's trying to sort of rotate here, but I mean, it's kind of good enough. Maybe we should have gone with a heavier duty one, but I can't believe how cheap some of this stuff is, you know. So this, for example, here is a mat. They're often not exactly what you expect. But this is one of those silicon heat-proof mats, and it was about $1.73 with free postage. Now, I don't know how the hell they can do that from China, but they did. $1.73. Now, it's pretty tiny, but it works. It's okay for now until such time as we get a bigger desk or a bigger workspace or whatever it might be. Perfectly fine. Likewise with that clamp setup, it was only a 10 or 12 bucks or something, you know. Now they're a $50 or $60 item, but you know, for now, until we kind of get established and see what we need and what works, well, let's just spend a few bucks rather than spend hundreds of dollars, only to find that's not really what we want anyway. We've rigged it up overhead, and I wanted to test these batteries because they're a bunch of D cells, and I've no idea how long I've had these for, and who even uses D cells anymore. Let's check them. If they're dead, let's send them off for recycling. I think we'll find that they're not, but what we'll do is we'll get this fantastic new overhead rig and capture the exciting moment. One volt. So that should be 1.5. That's done. What do you do if there is something? Well, see, that's 1.5. That's amazing that it actually still has 1.5 volts in it. .9 of a volt. Let's nip up to the shed and see if we can find a box we can put some of these batteries in, and then we can tidy them up. So I found a container. This would be perfect for it. And there's going to need some way of writing on it, so I've got some tape. If I could only find a way how to start it. So these ones, did we decide? These are the 1.5, they're the 1.4, and those are 1.2. Let's just put those 1.2 in here for now. I have no idea what particular use we'll find for them, but we'll stick them in there. We'll write 1.2 on. Now, just before we go, I just wanted to talk about mortality, and not mine, but that it visits us all eventually. But there's a newsagent down at the shopping centre where I often go, and I pick up some lotto there. And lately, she hasn't been so well, as in the owner of the shop, you know, and I've spoken to her a couple of times and asked how she was doing, and she explained that she'd had some dizzy spells and I think even a couple of seizures, and was having trouble getting hold of a neurologist to check her out. And I think she got an appointment, but whoever had written out the referral had mischaracterized what was going on. I think they did an EEG or something and pronounced her perfectly well, but she feels like she's got a cyst or a tumor or something going on in her brain, and she's got good reason for that, and I think it's because a family member had something similar, and sometimes these things are genetic. And so she was pressing for all of that, and then she started to have, I think, more frequent seizures. The shop was often closed when I went there, and then today when I went there was a notice up saying she was glad to have met a bunch of people, as in customers, thanked people for their loyalty, and trusted that the new owners would do well in that spot. So obviously she's moved on. Now, I did actually tell her some time back, or suggest to her, because it's not up to me to tell anyone what to do, but suggest to her that had she thought about selling, had she thought about moving on, had she thought about taking it easy, because clearly it was a stressful job. She was working there pretty well 6 or 7 days a week. It's a small business, and she couldn't really afford to employ someone given the margins and the overheads. Her principal business really is lotto. I doubt that people sell many newspapers these days, and the problem with ciggies is they're now so damned expensive. $50 a pack for the cheapest, I believe. I don't smoke, but I think it's about that. That people tend to go and look for cheaper sources, you know, such as the illegal tobacco trade. And there is a shop in the same area, I believe, who actually does sell that stuff, you know, under the counter, of course, because it is illegal. And I guess they get busted, but then they just reopen somewhere else. Anyway, she said that she couldn't really do that it probably wasn't worth very much. And in the end, of course, she's kind of been forced into it. Sometimes maybe being forced into it is a good thing. Sometimes it's better to take the preemptive steps yourself, because that way then you feel as if you've got some control over it. Whereas at the moment she probably feels like she's been forced into quitting, and that has to be upsetting, along with obviously her health and, you know, medical condition as well. I believe that she has a family. I believe that she's married. Her husband probably toils very hard as well, but she has kids to look after. They're grown kids. I think they're teenagers or at least, you know, into their 20s. But nevertheless, you know, you still feel that certain responsibility. One of them's a school kid. I met him one day when he came into the shop. But the point is that we have to look after ourselves. We really do. And as much as it is important that we work, we're incredibly fortunate that we live in a country whereby we have a good support system in terms of, let's say, benefits, welfare, to help people such as her who have true medical conditions and can get disability pensions. I believe it isn't very much, unfortunately, but it's better than nothing at all, which you might get in some countries. Plus, of course, who knows, you know, given the fact that she was working on such tiny margins and working 7 days a week, whether being able to stay home and recuperate or rest or get treatment. And we have a fantastic public health system in Australia. get treatment, that she may not be far better off, even if times are tough. You know, even if you do have to rely on just having a few bucks a week. If in fact she's still able to work, maybe she could do something in some downtime or spare time, whether that's either online work or whether it's, you know, physical work such as cleaning dunnies or whatever, you know, a thankless task certainly, but, you know, better to earn a few extra bucks, you know, an extra couple of $100 a week doing something like that than starving to death. So I just wanted to talk about that because I think it's important that all of us take care of ourselves. You know, I've had my health issues, and if you're an antique like me, well, no doubt you have too. But we can thrive, we can survive. The other thing, of course, is to have an interest, to have something that interests you. I had breakfast with a fellow the other day. It's a couple. They don't live that far from me. And I got the impression that he was bored. He was talking about a bunch of film that he's got. So I'm talking about not cinema film, you know, but film, actual film that was taken on a small Super 8 or 8mm standard 8 film camera, probably during the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. And he's got hundreds of feet of this film, and he wants to find a way to digitize it. He's strongly interested in film, but he doesn't really know anything about digital cameras. He seems to be hung up on this blockage of needing to get the film accessible, you know, in that he doesn't have a working projector, so he can't see it. So I spoke to him about digitizing it and about maybe picking up a camera again and pursuing his interest in photography or videography or filmography, if he wants to go back to films, because it is certainly something that you can pick up at any age. I mean, you know, I've developed my interest in videography / photography, you know, still photography and film photography, as you know, just over the last few years. And it is something that you can do at any age. You don't need to be young, and you don't even need a lot of bucks. I mean, you know, look at some of these cameras that I've bought. I'll grab one for you and I'll tell you about it. Well, this one here, for example, but this was actually gifted to me, so it didn't cost anything at all. But you could buy a camera like that for, you know, 50 bucks probably. I'm not certain, but, you know, it's a Panasonic GF1. It's, you know, an older model, probably 15 years old, micro 4/3 camera, but takes perfectly good video, as you'll see from some of those overhead shots that we took of me checking the voltage of those batteries. So you can pick up a cheap camera. The good thing about video compared to film, of course, is it's not expensive. You just look at them on your computer. Unlike film, which of course is quite expensive to process and or print, because while the cameras themselves are fairly cheap, and I've got a couple of boxes of them now, as you know, you can buy, you know, 6 cameras for $100, which is what I did. Often they're pretty old and they may need some work, but nevertheless, you've still got to then pay $30 or 20 or $30 for a film. You've then got to pay $20 for developing. You've then got to pay $15 for printing, you know, to get prints if you want prints. So, you know, you're up for maybe $50 per roll. I've got 3 of them sitting in there and 3 cameras with film still in, as well as a film here. So that's 7. So there's $350 worth of developing and printing. But it's worth it, because I think that with film, particularly with film, and I've spoken about this in other videos too, is that you start seeing the world in a different way. When we take photographs and video with our cameras, we just point the damn thing and shoot it. We don't really think about the framing or the composition or the time of day or the light or anything at all. And then we end up with, you know, as you can see on here, thousands and thousands and thousands of photographs, which you probably never ever really look at again, you know, because if I look at some of these, I say, oh, I don't even remember taking that. Here's a random one, you know, of, well, this is actually Ninda Gully and camping there. That was back in, from memory, 2019. So film, however, you end up with photo albums, you know, when you get the prints back. And there is also that kind of exciting moment when you do get the prints back. So while we get that instant gratification of being able to take a photograph and then look at it on our phone or on the back of our camera, it's nothing quite like that excitement of taking a photo, but before you take it, thinking about composition, framing, light, ancillary things that are in the photo that you don't want in the photo, because it's not always so easy to go back and edit it out later. For example, these days, you know, I can take a photograph of my car, and if I want to obliterate the number plate, I could just use the magic eraser, which is incredible. But in the old days, if I took a photograph of my car and I didn't want the number plate to be displayed, I'd have to find a way of either having something in front of it or angled in such a way so that it couldn't be read. Do you get my drift, you know? And that is not necessarily, well, that's an example, you know, but not necessarily the kinds of things that you do. But let's say, for example, there's an idiot standing there and you don't want them in your picture. Well, then, of course, you have to move so that they're obscured by a tree trunk, you know, or a car or something, you know, so that they don't appear in your picture. And that's the kind of thing that you need to think about when you're thinking about film photography. And so, of course, I think it's very much a focus. It really focuses your mind on that moment of what's the light like, how am I going to frame this, what are the settings on the camera, and exactly how am I going to compose this so that I don't get that big fat person standing there in the background in my shot, because I know they're just that's going to be the first thing that everyone looks at and say, who's that? Do you know what I mean? Like, we've got to make sure that the eye of the viewer is drawn to whatever it is that we want them to see, not just some random, because we couldn't be bothered figuring out how to frame them out of the shot. So look, a long and involved rant, but really about a whole bunch of things today. I'll show you those pictures, the overhead shots. In fact, I'll just include them in the video, so you've probably seen them already. I'll do another update soon on some of these cameras, including that fantastic, where's it gone? Right here. Comet camera, which I keep coming back to, and you see here how that leatherette has like lifted here on this side here and come off completely on that side. I think it'd be kind of nice then to get in there and scrub that up, remove it completely, and just end up with a beautifully shiny, polished metal camera. What do you think? I reckon that would look pretty bloody unique. And it would be a fantastic conversation starter when you were wandering about with a camera like that. Not that you do it just so you can get people interested in what you're up to, but I think it's kind of fascinating that you know, if you do have something unique that people want to ask you about it, say, what the hell is that you've got there? And this is just a beautiful camera. I think one of the best. Gorgeous. Thanks for watching.